All right, everybody, welcome back to the Two Dads Review podcast. It's a little bit of a special week, a little different week. It's a little bit later in the week. It's almost time for episode 9, but we are here tonight reviewing episode 7 and 8 of Westworld. This is Clay, one of your normal two dads, and Corey is not here today for the first time in the history of this podcast, and it's a sad day. But we hope to have him back soon. In his place, another good friend and the person who comes over to my house every Sunday to watch Westworld. So he's the one who makes half the jokes that I tweet about during the show. My good friend Kevin. Kevin, welcome to Two Dads Review podcast.
Hey, everybody.
He is here. We are live. I got one audio stream. I don't have to put that stuff together. It's not done over the internet. It makes my night a little bit easier. If you are just finding us for the first time, welcome. We are normally just a couple of dads talking about movies and TV shows, most of the new stuff that we like, and do some reviews and recaps for you. This time it's a couple guys doing it, and yeah, it's going to be a good show. I have no problem. If you didn't find us at twodadsreview.com, you can always head over there and find links to all of our podcasts from the past. You can also find links to other places to listen to our podcast. All of your favorite places: Apple Podcasts, Google Play Music, Spotify, Stitcher, TuneIn, Radio Public, and there's also links to our YouTube channel where all the podcasts go up as well. You click that at work, put it on behind your other window that's up, and you can listen to us while you're working real hard. Check us out on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, Two Dads Review, everywhere social media that matters. The word two, not the number two. And if you like what you hear, please hit that subscribe button, turn on notifications, because the one thing I can guarantee you is this podcast will come out once a week, but I cannot guarantee you the same day every week. Hence a Saturday release for this one. So enjoy it. We hope you guys like what you hear. If you are one of our longtime listeners, thank you as always for coming back. Thanks for hanging in there. We're that quickly approaching our year anniversary of this podcast. It's going to be Skyscraper with The Rock, I believe, that week, which is just suitable because we just love The Rock movies here on Two Dads Review, so it's great. With that being said, let's roll right into Westworld Season 2, Episode 7, titled Leia Scorches, which means the skinned. I had to look that up. Someone told me I did not know that's what it was called. But yeah, and I would say, considering I personally thought this was one of the better episodes, probably because it paid off a lot of the build up to them getting to the Mesa and the big attack happening. Like, was it all that you wanted it to be?
I think it exceeded what I was waiting for. I think I got a lot of good background on characters, which I like to dig into the characters. Mm-hmm. And it also answered a lot of questions, which were kind of in the back of my mind the whole time we watched it. So it was a really good episode. Even though you can't have action in every single episode, at least they made use of the more, sedentary episode.
Well, and the fact that we got more background and deeper stuff while still having an action episode is always nice, because half the time it's either we're going all action or we're going all talking, and we're not getting anything in between. And this time it was a little bit of both. You had the main assault, and you also had all the scenes with Bernard and Ford inside the cradle. So that was pretty cool. A lot of good stuff. A lot of light shine. A lot of theories that have been going on for the past 2 seasons answered for us to a certain extent by Ford, so that was good. So let's roll into it straight up from the start of the episode. So we start out, Stubbs and Bernard are in one of the glass rooms, and they're talking about Strand and Charlotte's, like, their whole overarching plan since they've got there. We're starting out in present day, all right, just so everybody knows. And what they're mentioning is that Strand and Charlotte do not care one way or another about rescuing anybody. They're not looking for survivors. They're just worried about their project. So we're still talking about, Abernathy's. They're still talking about trying to find Abernathy's core, which they don't have during the present time. We know he's bolted to the chair 2 weeks ago, but not now. We're not in that part of the timeline. So Stubbs mentioned he knows where there's a sat phone. And him and Bernard try to sneak out to go grab it. Strand intercepts them and is like, let's go take a walk outside while he's holding his firearm.
That's never good.
Never a good thing. And so they take him outside, and at night they're walking him like through the woods, and they end up arriving at the hidden house that Ford had set up where all his little like
The old cottage.
Yeah, the old cottage where Bernard killed Teresa back in the day. In fact, Stubbs during their walk was accusing Strand during the walk was accusing Stubbs of killing her because they know she's dead. And he completely blows off Bernard out. He's like, you wouldn't do it, but this guy, you have limited career potential. You got a glass ceiling you can't get through. Like you're not, you're the kind of person who would kill for this spot. So they get into the house as they're walking through and walking down to the, I think the answer, I'll get to that in a second, but Bernard's starting to remember all the stuff that had happened back in the house, last season. As they're in fact, they're in the room where he killed her, and there's like the bloodstains on the wall. And as Bernard's getting ready to say something because they're accusing they're accusing Stubbs over and over again of doing this, one random tech finds some like hidden door, and he's like, "Oh, what's this?" And there's just a whole brand new hallway.
Gee, how convenient!
How convenient! Right before he shot, right before they completely shoot Stubbs, and so they find this hidden room, and this is the scene that we've seen since the trailers. This is the room of Bernard's. And what was really cool, so they start uncovering, unsheathing all these Bernards, and you have like the really old school kind that like their face opens up like the little boys did, and then you have
the clamshell face.
Exactly, you had that, and then you had all of the other styles and types there, and they were and everyone's reaction, Strand, Charlotte, Stubbs, and Bernard's, all completely different, which I thought was really kind of cool. Like Stubbs practically shit his pants.
Yeah, he went red alert the second he saw it.
Right, and Charlotte she almost had like a smirk on her face. She was like, oh, okay, so this makes a little bit more sense now. And, you pulled one over on me type thing. And Strand just puts a gun to Bernard's head.
And he wasted zero time doing it.
Right, did not even hesitate. So that's when we cut to credits. We get to see our normal opening sequence. And when we come back, Charlotte is interviewing Bernard in the standard tech to host interview, except Bernard is like freaking out, like breathing funny and crazy stuff. And I didn't catch this when we watched it that first night because I guess I didn't hear them say it, but he's like, what's happening to him? And he's like, well, he's feeling like he's being waterboarded. Like they're not using any water. They just turned on the waterboarding program. Hence the major inhalations that he was doing and the weird stuff. I didn't catch it the first time. Did you?
Neither did I.
I didn't see last week, especially with this current week with all the Native American, with all the Lakota dialogue, I went ahead and turned closed captions on anyways. But watching this show in closed captions helps us catch all of the little like details. Whenever I do my notes, I always do it in closed captions because I can't. Half these people are mumbling or it's under their breath. Or even the closed cap, they'll tell you what to feel, like disheartening music. Or it always said, I'm like, oh, I'm supposed to feel bad now. Okay, cool. Or something is.
Well, there's so much nuance that's in the captions.
Right.
That you don't get watching the actual show. And I was totally off. I didn't get the whole waterboarding thing. Mm-hmm. What I was thinking was he was still stuck in that emulating a human track. And he was just going by habit. Mm-hmm. I didn't even catch the whole waterboarding.
Yeah, I thought he was like breaking. I thought as a host he was breaking, and that's why he was breathing all funny and like hyperventilating. But no, just being waterboarded.
Well, plus he was in the process of getting through a patched leak, so True. I was thinking there might be some.
Well, this is present day.
Oh, present
day.
So
it's present day. We're not completely drippy still. That hasn't come up since the present day plot. So, but yeah, it was weird. They question him about Dolores' attack on the Mesa during the present day So we already know this is happening, but they definitely want to find out about it now in the present day. So how they handle the rest of the episode is that Charlotte and Bernard are going to talk about it through their points of view, what happened during the attack from both of their points of view, and that's what we're going to get. So we moved to 2 weeks ago, more like a week now since all of the things that have happened. I say 2 weeks was when the party happened, so we're probably a week back now from the present day. So we're back to where Abernathy's bolted to the chair.
Which is a nice piece of special effects, by the way.
Yeah, that guy's got it rough. Whoever's doing the special effects on that the bolted chair guy, especially the first episode they did it to, because the actor kept moving his body and the bolts had to stay there, but you knew they were CG. So the guy's like, "Will you just hold still?"
Well, plus he was doing panicked breathing, so his chest was going up and down.
Yeah,
it's like whoever was doing that was pretty darn good.
Yeah, pretty good. So this all picks up right after the train explosion. Dolores and her horde, and this is when you get the whole assault. So she's there, all the lights are down, it's just red lighting everywhere, and Dolores just starts attacking anybody they see is getting shot. So the humans, the techs and everybody, they send down their assault team with what I can only say is like the tech from the Aliens movie, where you have the beeping. It's what it ended up being, because it's like, okay, you have a vest and it's going to light up towards the direction where there's going to be a host at, so just shoot in that direction.
Well, the first thing I thought of when I saw the vest with the lights, I've got a gaming system. Mm-hmm. And my gaming system has what's called a haptics controller.
Right.
So it's got a pistol plugged into a little tripod into this little pod, and it does force feedback. So in order to see which way the enemy is, it taps my pistol in the direction where it's coming from.
Right.
So these guys are doing force feedback, alien style, with their vests.
Right.
And I was paying very special attention to make sure that they didn't mess up, to show which direction the enemy is coming from. They did pretty good. There was only one part I saw that they were a little off.
I liked the way they showed it, because the guy who was running it, the main guy that we got to follow him as he was going through. He was pretty awesome, because he was just, you would see it light and he'd go, and it was really cool. So as they're sweeping, they've got a bunch of different sweep teams out. One of the teams comes upon a pile of bodies that they think are hosts, but it happens to just be the sweep team before them. And then it's cool because all their vests light up behind them, all like in a train, and they all turn around one at a time.
And what color did they light up?
Red, didn't they?
Red shirts.
Oh, well, yes.
Game over, man. Game over.
Yeah, we get Angela friggin' stabbing the guy in the face with whatever, and then just the whole rest of the team sweeps in and just mows them down. So, yeah, it was great. Yeah, it was game over. It was definitely... Oh, Bill Paxton. That was Bill Paxton, right?
That was Bill Paxton. Game over, man. Now what are we going to do?
So whatever they're trying to do to Abernathy, Charlotte orders him just to cut him open and start trying to get whatever's out of his head out of there.
Yeah, they were just trying to download their intellectual property.
Right. So so she sets them off on just sync him up and go with it. So they cut into the back of his neck to get started on that. And the whole point is all the hosts are going towards the cradle, so the orders are issued to make sure that they don't get there. Like, they do not let the host get to the cradle. And in the cradle currently, as of our last couple episodes ago, Elsie and Bernard are there anyways. Bernard's patched in talking to Ford. So, in fact, that's when they switch to that, and we see Bernard talking to Ford. And one of Ford's first lines are...
To see the world in a grain of sand, a heaven in a wild flower. Hold infinity in the palm of your hand, and eternity in an hour.
So that quote is a William Blake poem that speaks to innocence and also evil and corruption. It's all juxtapositions of each other, according to Wikipedia at least. So, yeah. During Bernard and Ford's conversation, we learned that it wasn't just James Delos trying to become immortal. They wanted to sell that, of course, to the highest, to whoever could afford it. So perfecting that on the people that own the company would then sell it to anybody who could afford it. So we learned that. So that's kind of been our thing, is like, well, was it just like the evil maniacal old man trying to do it, or were they trying to perfect it to actually replace people, all kinds of weird shit, or were they trying to sell it? So according to Ford, they were selling immortality. They wanted to sell it.
And that's why I think they didn't care about the assets on the island, or whatever it is. We're still trying to determine that. They wanted their intellectual property, and they might, burn that site and set up another site. That was probably like their beta test to be able to build the hosts to hold humans.
Right.
They were pulling a Frozen Walt Disney move.
Right, and even during their walk outside, when he snaps his fingers and pauses the whole park when everybody stops. Cool. I love when they do that. That was cool. That's just, it's got to be so great to be like an actor on that thing. I know they had to pause certain things like digitally, but just the folks who had to like stand there, don't blink till the camera sweeps past you, that kind of stuff. That's got to be insane.
Well, plus they get those close-ups, and he's walking around these people And he's doing a 360, and they gotta hold their breath and not twitch, not get a nose itch. I mean, that's pretty good stuff.
That's good stuff right there. Bernard's putting it all together during this conversation, and he was like, Ford asks him, why do you think that the host loops haven't changed much in 30 years? And Bernard puts it together that the guests were the variables, and the hosts are the controls. So they run their thing, and the guests show up, and that's why they're collecting all the data on their actions, because it peels back, it even skins, hence the title of the episode. Yeah. It skins them back to what their core is and how, and they want to digitize that because human consciousness, Ford says,
every piece of information in the world has been copied, backed up, except the human mind, the last analog device in a digital world.
Yeah, and I agree with that.
I completely agree with that. It's the one analog system that we have not been able to port over.
It was a giant social experiment.
Yes. Yeah, well, experiment / money cash grab.
Well, yeah, that was the next evolution of it.
Right. But, Ford says, and we all know this, the tech doesn't work. Like, they cannot crack it. In fact, he even says, my mind works here in the park, that but outside this park, I'd go mad in a couple of days. Like, if I'm not in the cradle in this environment, I lose it. So we leave Bernard and Ford, and we are now with the Man in Black. The last time we saw him was when they were ambushed, and him and Lawrence took off. So they're being chased by the Ghost Nation. The Man in Black and Lawrence and the rest of the crew are being chased by the Ghost Nation. They run into the same town that Maeve and her daughter, who are also running for the Ghost Nation, and in their section of the park, they all end up in the same little town. And Maeve reverts back to her old loop by hiding in a house, grabbing a shotgun off the wall, there wasn't a shotgun. She just hides in the house and is up against the wall on the other side of the entering door.
But she was envisioning it because it was like a deja vu moment mixed with a parallel universe moment. Mm-hmm. And that's what I like about the way they did this particular episode. True.
And I did so she is imagining it being the Ghost Nation guy coming in the door, but it actually ends up being the Man in Black, who doesn't even look at her originally and just walks to the window to look out for the Ghost Nation. And he turns and he's like, oh, it's you. And I think she says something to the effect of, leave my daughter and me alone or something. And then does not hesitate to blow his fucking shoulder off.
That was a good part of it.
That was great. Because I loved, yes, you just got shot, so you're already going to make some weird faces. But his reaction when she lands a shot on him and he falls out the door, I chuckled, honestly, because he was like, oh.
I don't think he thought she had it in her.
I think you're right, true. Well,
I think she was debilitated by the flashback, and I think he knew it.
I'll give you that. I mean, but she has fired on him before when it didn't matter. When she couldn't, back when she was in her old loop, she used to fire on him all the time, and it just bounced off of him.
That's because all the security controls were still there.
I mean, I don't know if he knows if he would think that she is incapable of it, but she didn't have the gun out originally, so she did a pretty nice draw on him pretty quick.
So was this a matter of he didn't know that her parameters were changed because he thought only certain hosts were parameter changed? Has
the Man in Black come across her yet since she's been her new God mode self? I don't think so. So maybe he didn't think, and because she didn't have a shotgun on her like he had seen her before, he didn't. That's a good point for him not to be hesitant.
He may have compartmentalized who has the anomaly, that is Dolores and her people, and didn't even think that she would have the anomaly.
So it showed him.
Surprise!
Surprise, you got a hole in your shoulder. So he falls out, stumbles away to take cover. During this time, then she exits and she closes her eyes and does her Jedi mind trick and turns Lawrence's cousins who were with them, turns them on him, and he's like, hey, take cover, and they just start shooting at him, and they hit him too. He puts them down. He takes another shot in the other shoulder, and I think a shot in the leg from the other two that attack him, and then him and her are, the side, I know that she gets him, or Lawrence gets him in the gut at the end.
There's quite a few hits on him.
Yeah, he's got at least, I think it was like shoulder, thigh, and then Lawrence stops her from shooting him. Originally, he draws down on her. And this is where we actually talked, Corey, I talked about this during the episode where Lawrence started to remember things, like where he was like, you have a daughter too, a couple episodes ago. And he's like, I don't think I told you that this time. So we knew Lawrence was already waking up in his own way.
I didn't catch that.
Yeah, you should listen to the podcast more often. So when they were being held in the church by Major Craddock, Lawrence had mentioned the Man in Black's daughter, and the Man in Black goes, Lawrence is like, you told me that at some point. And he's like, I did. So Lawrence knew that from another loop. So Lawrence is on his own awakening tour, and we had theorized, that's going to really suck when he remembers that you shot his wife in front of him and his daughter, and that's exactly what happens here.
Here we go.
Maeve's like, go ahead, think back, look at him, think back, and he does, and Lawrence shoots him right in the gut. I have a right gut shot, so it was Lawrence who shot him in the gut. But then Lawrence then a security team on the buggies come in, mow him down. The daughter runs from the house because Maeve had told her to stay there. She runs and gets snatched by a ghost nation as she's getting shot multiple times it's from the back, but nothing in the head, which is good.
Mostly torso shots.
Right. So any of these people we see, like Lawrence and her, who are getting shot in the chest and gut, their death program activated, but they're not out of the party yet. They can be turned back on at any moment. So Maeve gets shot. Sizemore jumps out. So these guys, Sizemore's with them. So this is, when we last left Sizemore, he was making the phone call with the stolen comm unit off the dead guy during the Asian section, during the Shogun World section. So this is his team he called to come get them. So the fact they showed up for him may just be because he was their head writer. Because they're not going for anybody, but he's one of the top guys in the list, I'm guessing.
Either that or they needed him to extract the intellectual property.
I don't know. That dude doesn't have a tech bone in his body. He's not a tech, though. He's just the writer.
Okay. I'll give you that.
He just may be high up enough for them to go. Anyways, they come to get him, and they go to, and so that's who takes him. But he stops him. He's like, you weren't supposed to, don't shoot her. She's special. And they toss her in the buggy and drive away. Yeah,
it's my opinion that everybody there was expendable except for the intellectual property. They probably need something from him.
Oh, I'm sure. Something. But anyways, the best part is they drive away, leaving the Man in Black to just bleeding, laying somewhere.
They may have well just flipped him the bird, because that's basically what they did.
So we jump back real quick to Abernathy, Charlotte, and the tech. They're trying to download it. Whatever it is too big to download. So she's like, just rip it out of his head. Just pull out his core and be done with it. So that's where that's their plan shortly.
Well, I was surprised they were even bothering with all the cables and everything. Because everybody else, they did the little apple coring thing on the top of their head and the hole saw and took the core and left.
Right. The only thing I can, and I agree with you completely. In fact, some other reviews that I looked at mentioned that as well. The only thing that I can think of is that when she initially brought Abernathy in, she's like, I don't care what you do to him, but don't touch his head. So I don't know if there's a chance. I don't know how many times that the machine drops the core ball out or something and breaks it or something. Or they were worried about
risk.
Anything, yeah. When you remove
kind of
it from
the guy trying to clean the USB thing before he plugged it in, even though it was
right, exactly.
It's not a sterile environment.
Yeah, it seems to not be the most. It seems to be a little more sensitive technology than it may need to be. So. I can. That's the only thing. Plus, it helps with the plot. So it's his head has plot armor right now. Don't cut it open yet, because if you cut it open, he can't have his scene later on with Dolores. So we're not going to cut it open yet.
Yeah,
he needs that. All right, so we're back with Ford and Bernard inside the cradle. Ford takes Bernard to his house, the one that he took. Okay, the virtual version of the one that he took Dolores to in the real world during 30 years ago when they were trying to sell their concept to Delos.
Right.
So this is the house he was building in the city. Ford mentions that we built everything here first, virtually. We built it all virtually first. So, I want to see how my house is going to look in this area. Here it is. Okay, great. Let's build it in the real world type thing. So this house being shown, I've got a feeling that Dolores or host Bernard or the combination of the two, something that is getting back to that house this season.
Well, they wouldn't have dangled that teaser if there wasn't a reason for it.
Right.
And that house being there was just the fact that the people that ran the program lived on property and they needed a place to live. But I think that house is going to be used as a plot device, like hidden room underneath it or something like that, just like Ford's cottage. There's got to be something more to that house.
So do you think that house... So we know that house exists virtually in the cradle. Do you think it actually exists in the park?
I think it's also physical.
Somewhere hidden in the park?
Because they have to have a place to live. They're not going to helicopter out there and come back.
Right.
They're not going to commute for the job. Most of those people are so tied to the job, they live the job. Just like Ford was saying about leaving.
Right.
He would go crazy. So they have to have places on site that they live at. It's not just dormitories. I mean, the lower staff, they'll get their dormitories, but, the people that are higher in stature there probably get deluxe treatment.
That makes a lot of sense. And I mean, even Bernard at one point says that his wife had told him that you practically live there anyways. So we know especially if they are an island, which you and I both have had numerous Sunday conversations that we're pretty sure it's an island.
I'm 99% sure it's an island.
It's a fucking huge island, but it's like all of Japan. It's like, we're just going to take that one.
Well, it's not something that's unfathomable. Mm-hmm. In the Middle East, they're building islands
just to put
out
on
in the water for resorts.
Yep.
So this could have been something that was instead of terraformed, island formed. You never know. I mean, these guys have an unlimited budget. You see the type of resources that they have.
True. So as they're finishing up at the house, the last thing that Ford mentions in the house before Bernard enters back into the real world is that the clone project only started after Arnold was killed. They mentioned that. He said it didn't start. Delos didn't start doing this till after Arnold died, and that means that Bernard was built off of the memories of Dolores and Ford, because Dolores had the most interaction with him along with Ford. Because so all of our almost, if not all of our come online Dolores conversations have actually been her talking to him and her testing his fidelity.
I now just understand that.
Do you?
Because all of a sudden I'm thinking, okay, they were using Dolores as they were using the Man in Black to validate his father's accuracy. It's a parallel universe there as well.
Right, exactly. And so that shines a lot, and that makes every conversation we've ever seen Bernard have with her, especially if it's in the past 30-year conversation, it's probably not Arnold. It's probably her testing because they're always in that. If I'm not mistaken, there may be a couple of times where it wasn't, but if they're in that one room we always see with the concrete walls, not just the normal glassed-in things, they're in that secret house in that basement.
And that's when she's in the blue dress and not the current wardrobe because it's a long time ago. Mm-hmm. And it's flipping the script. It's a paradigm shift.
Yep.
She's actually interviewing him and he doesn't know it.
Yep, he doesn't at all. And yeah, that's another reveal that that has turned a few things we've known the whole 2 seasons on its head. But at the very end, Ford goes all like a psycho movie killer and like all the blinds come down, it goes dark, and he goes,
I'm sorry, Bernard, but you just don't have it in you to survive. It's my fault, really.
You said the hosts could determine their own fates. You gave us free will.
I did, but you won't have any use for it. Unless I take it back.
And like reaches for his head, and then Bernard comes back online in the cradle, and you're like, oh shit. So Ford's going for a ride in Bernard's head.
So this is where you insert the audio clip of Metallica, Master of Puppets. Because he just takes over Bernard and turns him into a bad guy.
Right, if I wanted to get sued by Metallica.
Yeah, let's not go down that road because that's been done.
I will not be putting that sound clip in here at all.
That's true.
Right. So when Bernard's core gets loaded back in, the system comes back online. So that means Ford is piggybacking in Bernard's head. So Ford's consciousness in the cradle was what was blocking all of the attempts to hack into it. Now he's out, the system's back online, comes back on nice and pretty, and he's riding along in Bernard's head. So if it's its full consciousness, it's only going to last a couple days before it.
So I have a question about that.
Okay.
So when Bernard was hooked up and Ford was in his head, when Bernard is disconnected, that takes away Ford's power. Is that correct?
On the whole park, yes. On Bernard, no. Now he's in Bernard. He controls Bernard. We see it at the end of the episode. Or as we go on in this episode.
So Bernard is a vessel for Ford.
Uh-huh. But both consciousnesses are there, but Ford has the ability to turn off his free will and take over.
That's just weird.
Uh-huh. It's like having Anthony Hopkins riding around in your old brain space. So we're in the control center, and just like Elsie had said, the tech in there is like, everything, I don't know what I did. I didn't do anything, but everything's back online now. And Dolores, and there starts to be like banging on the doors, so Dolores and her party are getting closer to the main control room with the map room. Stubbs, and they're all, and so then we flip down to Stubbs, who is in with Abernathy and all of them down there, and he pulls the gun on Abernathy's head, and Charlotte's in there. He's like, I want to know what's in his head, because he doesn't know. No one's told him shit. He knows zero. And so Charlotte's in there, and he just pulls the gun out. He's like, what's in his head? And she's like, what are you doing?
And that's not really the play that he should have made.
I mean, he's out of options anyways.
Yeah, he has nothing to lose at this point.
Right. And as he's doing that, like, Teddy rolls in full SWAT garb, and like, good on Stubbs for getting a punch in, and good on Teddy for not reacting completely and blowing his head off. But Stubbs gets a one punch in it. It doesn't even faze Teddy. He just draws his pretty little Glock on him.
So let's rewind about 30 seconds.
Okay.
And let's talk about the tech that doesn't know what happened, that everything got fixed. You and I come from an IT background.
Agreed.
We've had these moments in our junior careers.
Uh-huh.
Like, I don't know what happened, but I'm just going to say I fixed it.
Yeah, be like, it just works now. We're good. I don't know.
All fixed. See you later. I'll send you the bill.
Like, something's really, really wrong here. I'm not telling anybody. Very true. Yeah, so at this point, after Stubbs gets to punch Teddy, and then get Teddy to draw down on him, Dolores comes in behind him, and fucking Charlotte, dude, the balls on this girl. This is when she's like, it's so wonderful what you've done. Like, what you and your friends have done is so great. You know, it's a thing that we should all celebrate. And she's trying to talk like management style to her. And I know that you and I joked about it while we were watching it the first time, because I forgot that I didn't forget, but I just didn't think about it, that Charlotte makes it to the present day. I wanted Dolores to fucking shoot her so bad, just because of the way she was talking to her.
I've heard people talk to me like that in the past. And that usually meant the contract was coming to an end.
Right. What you guys have done is great, but yeah. So just to watch her switch, just the balls to think that she could actually change Dolores' mind for what she has done over the entire park over the last week, to be like, this is great. It should be celebrated. It should be studied. What's happened. How far you've come. But it's like, no, bitch, I'm not done yet.
Well, in one side, she might actually be thinking, hey, if we can figure out what you're doing and how you got that way, it's more intellectual property for us. So she might be thinking from a generating profit perspective. But she's trying to save her butt. Too.
It's all that management voice. It just makes me, it just makes my fucking skin crawl.
Yes.
Right?
And part of me was like, just double tap her.
Yeah. We were saying it while we were watching it. I was like,
shoot her!
I was like, just shoot her. I was like, oh, damn it. She survives the present day. Shit. Like, she's not going to die. That's too bad. So, yeah. So so now we're back with Bernard and Elsie, and they're moving through the glass rooms, trying to get up from the cradle and out. Bernard starts to see so now we do know what's happening. We talked about it a minute ago, but Bernard sees Ford in his reflections, like in the mirror.
And that was super spooky and super cool.
Like standing over his shoulder, and then he's standing right next to Elsie when he's talking to her, and she's like, who are you talking to? So Ford tells Bernard, get her out of here. She needs to go. You need to get her away. We got things we got to take care of. So Bernard sends her down to get more weapons. He's going to meet her in the parking lot get a buggy and get out of there or whatever. So Elsie takes off. And I don't think we see Elsie again this episode. No, we don't. We do not. So this is the last time we see Elsie this episode. She's out, which makes me sad because I love seeing Elsie. Ever since the day she came back, the episode she came back, I was so excited.
Heck, we almost let loose a cheer.
Yeah, I think I may have whooped in my living room when we were watching it. Yeah, so there's an awesome shootout with Angela and Clementine versus some of the tech guys. Or some of the sweep teams. And those girls were letting them have it.
That was great.
They were, and Angela gets hit and goes down. And, like, Clementine looks over and sees her get hit and, like, just goes on full on, like, I'm switching this bitch to auto. And we're just gonna pull this trigger.
She went full Terminator.
She did. But the best part is Clementine gets hit, which sucks. After she goes fucking Terminator for a little while. But she only gets shot in the chest and stomach. So, still okay. Her brain is not gone, so we don't have to find a new one. So she's good. Angela limps away. Dolores and Charlotte. So then we're back to Dolores and Charlotte. We left with the management speech, and we came back with Dolores telling her pretty much to go fuck herself. The biggest problem with the techs and the Delos employees, they thought that the hosts were trying to get to the cradle to protect their backups. But what Dolores tells her is that those are our chains. Those backups are what make us hosts, not human.
They're hostage to the memories that they're using to reset the hosts for the next game.
Right. So if I get rid of those, then I'm just like you.
Free.
Exactly. I'm free. I have one life to live, and I'm going to live it the way I want to. So that's what's been Charlotte and all their team's problem, is that they thought that they were going for the cradle to take it or to preserve it, but they are not.
They do not want that to happen.
Right. The hosts want to destroy the backups. So that's when we switch to the cradle, and Angela is there with her nice little, you know, she rocks it out for her last scene. I'm just going to put it out there. Like, I did make a joke. I was like, girl, you need to eat a hamburger, but there were some nice curves on that girl. She's a little bit skinny, but I was like, man. And the security lead guy we've been following kind of through most of the fights, he finds her down there, and he comes up to her, and she has no weapons. I think she's dropped the knife she may have been holding. And so she flips into her old school, like, she was the greeter back in the day when William first came in. She was wearing the white dress. She was the greeter. So she switches into that gear, and she just lathers this guy up. And he's standing there with his shotgun and wearing fucking grenades, standing right next to her, up on her, and she gets up on him, and this is where I was saying earlier, he still thinks she wants to take the cores. And she's like, nah, I don't. And she pulls the pins on the grenades on his jacket, and they go up in a blaze of glory. And good night, Angela, you sweet, sweet Jesus, thorn-wearing crazy lady, you are so awesome. But yeah, she goes out, and she even gets to put in her great line of,
welcome to Westworld.
Bitch. Welcome to Westworld, bitch.
She should have put a little bit of an explicative on it to add to it. But yeah, she goes out. She goes out good. So now we see, because we have seen the cradle in the present day a couple episodes ago charred to shit. So we wanted to see how it got there, and now we do. And someone makes a mention during this episode, I think over a comm, that of course, the fluid that's containing these cores is flammable as fuck. Someone mentions, if even a match goes up down there, that shit's gonna go up go up like crazy. So someone says it over a comm, and if you didn't have...
I completely missed it.
We're gonna watch the next two episodes with the closed captions on at the house, just so we catch everything, because I catch it all afterwards. But yeah, so that's, of course, the gallons and gallons of... billions of gallons of fluid that's keeping the cores cool is flammable, if not explosive.
From a technical standpoint, that sounds counterintuitive.
Horrible idea. Yeah.
Especially when you're trying to suppress heat.
Horrible idea. Yeah, exactly. So that's when Dolores says, you know, now we're truly free, because they feel the building shake. And so she's still reading Charlotte the Riot Act.
Yeah, but are they truly free? Because there could be other facilities with backups.
Yeah, true. From what we know and what she knows, they're free. They have no backups. They are now as human as the people they're talking to, because there is no way to bring them back.
Okay.
One shot to the head and you're done, that kind of thing. And then, as she's about to end Charlotte, Abernathy has like one more I'm back to being daddy. He comes back, just a moment of lucidity, and he says,
One fire burns out, another's burning. One pain is lessened by another's anguish.
That is Romeo and Juliet, I think. Yeah, that's Shakespeare, Romeo and Juliet. I think the second time he's quoted Shakespeare, if not the second time he's quoted Romeo and Juliet. So just to know that, because he did that again when he came to in the Forlorn Hope. His quote there was it was definitely Shakespeare. It was either Romeo and Juliet or it was another one of his plays. So the man, why he's going to Shakespeare, I don't know. And I'm not sure we're ever going to find out, but he always keeps pulling Shakespeare. So, I don't know. But it's more than once. I could look it up, but I'm not going to. I forget which episode it was. But yeah, when he comes to at Fort Forlorn Hope, he is quoting Shakespeare once again. So, as he's saying that, Dolores, what pulls Dolores, Dolores has the fucking brain cutter out, and she is about to torture or kill Charlotte, but probably kill her later, but definitely torture her for a while. She has the brain saw out. I'm
sure she might want to play with her.
She was definitely gonna play with her for a little while. But this is when he comes back, and it's what distracts her, and she turns her head, and they cut away from it to Teddy's hallway fight scene with Coughlin, who is the security guy. Yeah. The Irish, I guess Irish is probably racist if he's not Irish. Whatever. I can't do it anymore. He's
some kind of European.
Something not British, but one of those islands over there. But he, Irish or Scottish. He's one of the two. I don't know. But his fight scene with that guy, they duel it out from distance. He shoots the gun out of his hands. And then I like how Teddy just empties his two pistols and just drops them and then just advances on the guy, and then he gets away. Coughlin gets on top of him for a couple punches, then Teddy just rolls him and then pretty much just pulverizes. They don't even show, for it to be HBO, they didn't show us his face, but Teddy punched for a long time.
Yeah. Made it concave.
Yeah, there is definitely...
But it was very satisfying because Teddy, as a character, as a regular host, you would think when he went bad, he'd be a gunslinger. Mm-hmm. And you got the gunslinger moment. It was satisfying.
Very much. What the whole, the shootout.
Yeah, the guns blazing. It was great.
Yeah, he is, his ironwork is good.
Yeah, he went from being a good guy to a badass.
Right. You had a badass in you all the time, Teddy. You could have been this badass. So Coughlin's dead. He's good and dead. So we cut back to Abernathy and Dolores. While this episode is so much shooting up and blood and guts and, a couple of things with Bernard and Ford, Dolores has a fantastic moment here with her father, and she's crying. He knows he needs to go. He knows that he tells her he's broken, and they get their goodbyes, which is nice for her, because while she is evil incarnate most of the time, she still has that farm girl load in her, and she still can pull from that and wants to, and then her father is her weakness, or her cornerstone for that matter.
Well, since they don't erase the previous loops,
is overwrite them. Yeah,
it's just she's going back to something she already knows, and she gets to have closure, mm-hmm. which I think is unique for someone who's not a real person to want closure.
Right.
I think that's something pretty cool. That shows that they're a little bit more human than they were created as.
Yeah. And it's nice to see that they get that goodbye. You followed their path from the first episode of season 1. So if this is the last time we see the character of Abernathy, if not the actor who plays him, it was a good goodbye for him. They both put everything into it. And then she grabs the saw. So you know what she's going to do. So we're back in the control room, the map room, I like to call it. So then they give us a quick shot in the control room where all we hear is banging on the door. So someone is trying to get in, and they do not know what to do with it.
Barbarians at the gate.
They are there. So the horde has arrived. And then we cut down to the parking lot. Sizemore arrives at the Mesa with Maeve. So they pull her out. They put her on a table. Over the comms, you hear that the control room has been breached. That's how you learn that the bang we heard a second ago has resulted in someone getting through finally. So then we get a shot of Bernard, who is standing in the control room, just standing there, and all the mayhem is happening around him. Everything. Like
he's absorbing it all.
Right. And I feel kind of like an idiot because one of the people in the Horde has a trench coat on. He's a big-ass son of a bitch. And the way he lays down when he dies looks like a fucking bear. And I could have sworn there was a bear in the control room, and I was so excited about seeing them bring a bear, and they didn't. So I let that go. But and the worst part is you never saw that guy fall to make that shape, but you saw it at the very end when they swept around. And I was like, well, there's the shape I thought was a bear, but it's not a bear. It's just we know it's one of the masked guys in the Horde, just one of the big bastards.
And as we've discussed, I was hoping for a Spaceballs moment.
I just wanted a bear in the control room.
Can't we just get a bear, man?
Right. They even show us a bear next episode with when Akecheta talks to Ford. Yep. They had that paused bear with all the other guys. I was like, man, where were you? I needed you in the control room, buddy. So yeah, that's that. So the fight was still great. There's like a sniper up in the second floor, but he gets taken out and he falls out real weird out of the tower, out of the top of the second floor.
Yeah, I didn't even know that upper floor was open.
No,
I thought that was just decoration.
That dude was in the spot I would have been in. I'm like, I'm not getting down there. Like, I'll just snipe these bastards. I'm not doing that shit. So the whole point of Bernard being there is Ford talks to him and says, "Go during this melee, go shut it down." So he walks over to one of the remote units that the techs were using and shuts the whole system down. Shuts the rest of the system down. Everything's offline. And at that point, that the fight is done. The fight is done in the everything. Everybody in the tech room is dead. Everybody in the control room is dead.
Just a pile of bodies.
Oh, just a pile of bodies, including one that looks like a bear. Damn it. So we're back in the parking structure. Sizemore is talking to Maeve and has to run away or hide because Dolores and the rest of the Horde are exiting the Mesa.
Yep.
Exiting through the control room. So this is the second time that Dolores and Maeve have met face to face on, since the awakening. And so Dolores is talking to her and saying, well, what Maeve is up saying that she has to go find her daughter, and Dolores tells her that
the kid they gave us is just another rope they used to lash us down.
And then Maeve turns to her and says, "Is that how you justify what you've done to him?" And she looks at Teddy. And so she's like sticking it to her.
I didn't catch that the first time around, but now it makes sense.
Right. And also during the scene, we see that Dolores is cradling her father's core. So we know she's cut his head open and taken his core out. And then for a second there, because she unholsters her weapon and she puts it to Maeve's head and says, "Do you want me to kill you?"
And this part bothered me because I wanted her to continue. And
she does, which is good, because I was really worried that she was going to end her because Dolores has that streak, and it was like, do you really want? No, please don't kill Maeve. Like, she's got way too much story to go.
Well, plus I think Maeve, and I don't want to lay down too many story ideas early, but I think Maeve might be the only way to fix the Dolores problem.
Maybe.
Maeve might actually be the good side, while Dolores would be the bad side.
Right, because Dolores is still an 19th century person in a whatever century area, while Maeve knows all of the tech portion of it.
Yeah, she's got everything turned up to 11, where Dolores only has rage and revenge and those things turned up to 11, but not the rest.
Not the knowledge of knowing what you're looking at. But enough to know, like, cut my dad's head open and take what's out of his brain type thing.
And I think Maeve has the capability of solving the Dolores problem. At least that's my prediction.
You think it's going to come down like them battling it out?
I have a feeling it might go that way.
That could be cool. That would be great. Maeve with her Jedi mind tricks. So, all right. Bernard is stopped by one of the security teams. And this is where, like, Ford's in his ear. He's like, we don't have time for this. Pick up the weapon and shoot him. Pick up the weapon and shoot him. And at some point, Ford's like, never mind. I'll just do it myself.
Click.
And like all the lights go out, and then he picks up one of the P90s, and you get like the flash between Bernard's body, and then you see also Anthony Hopkins holding the gun, firing, so you know he's the one controlling it. And so the flashing back and forth, and Bernard's also flashing back and forth through his memories as well as this is happening. Like, it's all his son and all the stuff that makes him him, like all that stuff. So it's very, very cool shot.
Well, when the strobe effect of the flashing was happening, all I could think of was Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde.
Very true. That's exactly it. And Dr. Jekyll not in control.
Correct.
Like cannot help what happens. So then we are back to the present time, the very end of the episode, and it's Charlotte and Bernard. So we finished their telling of each side of their stories, and the techs who are off to the side outside of the room are saying that he's been trying to debug himself for the past hour. Like his head is so screwed up that he's trying to debug himself. That's why as Charlotte's interviewing him at the end, she's like, "You need to tell me where Abernathy's core is. Where did Dolores take it?" And she takes him into analysis mode or whatever, where he has no self-control. And then he tells her, and that ends the episode. So now they know in the present day, finally, since so we saw them get Abernathy during the fight stuff, and then we also saw them in the present time not having Abernathy's core. So now we've seen how they lost it, and now we see that their next goal is in the present day is going to find it again.
They filled the gap with a flashback.
Finally, yes. So this whole flashback episode filled in all of our questions, what happened at the Mesa. It's pretty much filled in everything we know from the present timeline. We knew what was happening before it. We knew what happened at the end, and now we know what happens for all that. All we have to do now is follow Dolores out to where she hides it, and then we have to go from Bernard telling her where it is to them going back to that same place.
Recovery mode.
And of course, we have to find out about the flooded place, how those people get there and get flooded out, and all the hosts get drowned, or all the bodies are in that water. That's what we have to get to.
So, which would you rather have happen?
What's that?
Would you rather have Dolores have her way, or would you rather have Delos recover their intellectual property? There's a fork in the road here.
True. If Dolores gets her way, she's going out into the real world. So that could be... I have a feeling that would be stopped fairly quickly.
Yeah.
Like, I don't think that they would...
The first thing you build when you build a facility like that of ambulatory robots is a way to keep them in the gates.
Well, even if they get out into the real world, you're going to have the first SWAT team, police officer, army force you come up against, you're going to get wasted by future tech. You just are. So I don't think that's ever going to happen. They may gain control. I think they could, at the end of this whole series, they could gain control of the park, and that could be their island. You just stay there and live your lives. We won't bother you. You don't bother us. We don't bother you.
So you're going to a Jurassic Park finish.
Pretty much, yeah. Except don't visit. Don't visit it. Yeah. It's not a theme park.
Now, what do you think about Dolores having the core and trying to reconstitute her father in another host's head?
So whose head would you like it to go in?
I have no idea, but there's plenty of ones with holes in them on the beach.
True. She could put him in Teddy and be nice and that'd be creepy.
That would be weird. Oh, that would be so weird.
Besides, we know Teddy in the present day was in that body of water, so she gets rid of his ass sometime too.
That gives a whole new meaning to father issues.
Yeah, that's not what we want to go towards. So I don't know. It could be. Yeah, I don't think she's going to win it. I just don't think it would be too hard of a story to follow anyways in the real world. I think she could, if all those hosts that were in the water only allows a couple to escape, then it's possible. But if you bring 15, 20, 30 people that are all, they're going to get found out pretty quick. But I think I think all of this is only for her to escape only.
It sounds like you're talking about the water floaters are a diversion.
Well, yeah. I mean, for sure. Like she's definitely not taking everybody with her. She may gather all of them to help her path, but I think her path is solitary. I think her goal is to get herself out of the park, which is selfish as fuck, but I can't blame her.
So then that means that her father's core becomes more of a memorial, like ashes or an urn, than actually being reconstituted.
Well, Yeah, I mean, and to be honest, her father's not even there anymore. There's very little of her father left, but that IP is worth a shit ton of money, and they're not going to... It's also a protector for her if she has it, so when Bernard tells them where it is, what is he really doing?
Or, another storyline altogether, is Dolores operating on programming and bringing that core outside the park to accomplish the original mission.
God, could that
as
be...
Plan B.
Right, as like... That could be... But then they're all... They would be on... You would think that the higher-up techs would be onto it.
Yeah, but they've missed so much up to this point.
Yeah, there's definitely compartmentalization when it comes to knowledge sharing. There is no knowledge sharing in this company at all because people don't know shit. So
they know their job, and that's all they know.
True. Yeah, it's
Dolores
bad.
could be the coup plan.
She could be the one that the backup to the backup.
Yep. Redundancy.
All right, so that's episode 7. All right, let's go into episode 8. So, episode 8 is it's kind of a bottle episode because it doesn't involve any of the main characters we see all the time. It is literally just the story of the enlightenment of Akecheta. I'm going to say that. If it's wrong, I don't care. It's easier than what I think it may have to be. But the title of the episode is Kiksuya, which in Lakotan means remember. So that's what the title of the episode is. What we get, so this whole episode is a vital episode of how the main Ghost Nation guy became awakened, became woke, or whatever you want to say. And
he noticed a trend of things happening.
Right, and it's always because when they see the maze, that's what triggers that sub-program.
So is that a trigger, like go to line 10 and
right.
Start over?
Right. No, the maze is like access this friggin' hidden subfolder and you start wondering and you can recall your old memories, that stuff. That's when they see that maze, that's when it kicks off.
So it's an Easter egg.
Pretty much. Okay. Yeah, kind of, to a certain extent. Yeah.
Okay.
I'll give you that. So yeah, that's what happens. That's what happens. So anytime anyone who's a host has seen that item, at some point they begin their path to awaken, to be awakened and be able to access their old memories and their old lives and know how long they've been doing what they've been doing. So yeah, so we start 2 weeks ago, right after Sizemore took Maeve and left the Man in Black. The Man in Black is like dragging himself to a stream. Like he's way injured. He's barely alive. He's even telling himself, like, don't do this here. It's not here. Not yet.
This isn't the way I want to go out.
Right. Not here. Not here. Definitely not now. So he does not, he's like, do not let me die in this park. Not here. Not this way. And Akecheta rides up to him on the horse. This is the same guy that we saw at the party when they were trying to sell the concept to Delos. So this is the same guy. So this, and he has been, and we learned through this episode, he is the original, the OG Ghost Nation guy. He even tells the Man in Black that he remembers him. Like he says, I remember you. And it's not just like from the park. I remember you from that party.
Yeah, and that's the part where it took me a second to remember that he was at the party with him as his younger self.
Yep.
And that's when the finger snap deal happened and everybody froze. And he got to see that they were all...
No, that wasn't
hosts.
William, though. It was... William left he saw them for only a hot second.
Okay,
because William left way early.
Friend.
Yeah, Logan got to do all that stuff. Right. Which we do get to see Logan later on, too. We haven't seen him in a while either.
Yeah, that was actually quite hilarious.
So we pick up back at their camp, and he just, like, dumps him off. Like, he just knocks him off the horse. And this is where, from the last episode, when they snatched up Maeve's daughter as well, they've all taken them all back to their Ghost Nation camp, and they're not harming them, they're protecting them.
But they give you the illusion that there's something bad going to happen, and then they unfold the story.
Mm-hmm. Right. And when Akecheta goes and talks to the daughter, she starts to have memories of her time with Maeve. So when Maeve first ran up to her a little while ago, she didn't recognize her all the way, but now she's starting to have memories of her time with Maeve and everything. Partially because of her seeing the symbol. Well, so what we talked about a minute ago, seeing the symbol makes you become aware of the subprogramming and being able to follow your old stuff. But she always got either snatched or killed. I don't know. Anyways, I'm not sure if she had seen the symbol yet, but we also know at the very end of the episode that Maeve is talking to him through her. Am I going over this?
So the part that I got about it, the daughter was getting a latent wake-up call from Akecheta.
Right.
And he was basically trying to educate her and enlighten her on what's really happening. And I think the flashbacks that are happening for the daughter are starting to make sense in her head.
Right.
And the only time you really see the daughter seeing the maze is in the tragic scene where the mother and the daughter are in the middle of the maze.
Dead. She's already dead.
In the dirt.
Right.
And you can assume that she's dead. I don't know for a fact if she's dead, but that's why she never had the awakening triggered. At least in my mind.
Yeah, I think it's fairly... If she's seen the maze, it's fairly recently. So she's just now starting to...
Yeah, she's making the pieces come together.
Right. I mean, she's remembering... Oh, I know, because one of her memories we see right here is that there's a tea party that her and her mom are having, and he has given her a rock with the maze drawn on it. So she has seen it back in the day. I
forgot about the rock.
Yeah, I should have read further on my notes before I started talking about that part. But yeah, so it's also where Maeve's awakening started, way back in that line of that narration. Like when she was there, she saw the maze for the first time there, and then at some point in the they put her into the whorehouse instead of being the mom.
So in my notes that I forgot to bring with me, I wrote down and I put quotes around it, a Quado moment. You remember Total Recall?
Yes.
Open your mind.
Which one's that?
The guy opens his...
the guy in the stomach?
The guy with the baby in the stomach.
Right.
He's saying, open your mind, and the flashbacks come to him. Mm-hmm. And this turned into a parallel universe of that.
Nice.
So Akecheta is trying to open her mind and teach her what's going on so she knows and she has insight into what's going on around her to get rid of her fears because she thinks something bad is going to happen to her.
Right.
And that's the whole thing that they set you up with, the scene where they're bringing all these people to the camp where you think they're going to kill them. And really what he's trying to do is show them and awaken them and recruit followers to say, no, this is what's really happening to you. Do you see it?
Yeah, right. Well, very true. And he leads that later on. Later on, he mentions how big their numbers have gotten. You see that the Ghost Nation, the folks with the white and black face paint, have gotten a lot larger. Same time frame. So we're still at the time after the Men in Black got shot. So Sizemore, this is after she's talked to Dolores. He's wheeling her down into the glass room areas where the tech is, and one of the main techs, he's like, you need to save her because none of y'all can do anything, but she can talk to the hosts on the fly. And the guy's like, okay, clear this room, get everybody out of here. I'll look at her.
It took a bit of convincing though.
It did. But he finally convinced him to. So we're back at the Ghost Nation camp, and Akecheta speaks to Maeve's daughter, and he's talking about her starting to waking up. So he's actually referencing the fact that she's starting to remember all this stuff. And then we get through their conversation, his backstory. So the rest of the episode is him talking to her. So we're going to come back to them, but it's because he's telling this whole story to her about how he woke up and referencing the way that she's starting to wake up now.
I found it interesting that he was talking in his language and she understood everything.
Right. Because because they can all understand it as long as they access the right file.
Correct.
So let's talk the story he tells Maeve's daughter. So before he's ever the face painted warrior that he is, he's just a standard Native American style host. He's got a wife whose name's Kohana, and they're in their teepee, their hut, whatever it is, and he's getting ready to leave to go out on his day for stuff, and she tells him to take my heart with you when you go, and his response to her is take mine in its place. So that's that plays its role through the rest of this episode. Like it's a catalyst at the very end of the episode as well. He talks about how peaceful and close his village was. Like everybody there is doing their part. It's just a standard, Native American village. There's not any war. They go out, the men gather, the women, the men hunt, the women are gathering, and it's a normal standard, what you hear in the history books.
And my notes, again, which I didn't bring. So I drew a parallel to Disney World.
Okay.
So in Disney World, you go on the pedal boat, or you go on the different scenic tours throughout the park.
Right.
And they have background scenery. And I think initially these folks were background scenery to the tourists that came to the park. And they were just auxiliary tools to impart, the feeling of the Westworld, the Wild West.
Right.
And the Indians. They didn't really have a part. They were just accessories.
Right. Which is very true, which is later on, we'll talk about it when they bring him in to up the ante, because they're not doing anything but being a Native American tribe, out in a ghost nation tribe who are literally ghosts because they're not seen by anybody because nobody cares about that narrative.
Yeah, they were just innocuous things that were there.
Right. So on one of his hunting and gatherings, he comes across the church and the town that the massacre happens and where Arnold is killed by Dolores. And he comes across all of that.
And he came across it as fresh aftermath.
It was it had just happened. And in the bar, or in the place behind where she had killed him, there was the maze. It was sitting there on the table, the one that they had dug.
The puzzle box.
Right. And so that was his first time seeing it. And when he comes back to his village, that's when he starts, not losing it, but losing his mind. Like, he starts drawing the maze everywhere he can. He's one of the guys accuses him of drawing it while they're trying to go hunting.
It's like, dude, you should be hunting and not being distracted. But at the same time, it's the same behavior as really early. It might have even been season 1, where they had that really big guy in the canyon.
Yeah.
And he always kept, doing the maze carvings.
Right. Yeah, exactly. Well,
he had the same disorder.
True. Well, everybody who sees the maze does that.
Yeah, they get hypnotized by it.
And they start drawing it everywhere to pass it on. Right, exactly. Correct, the wood carver.
It's a hypnotic effect, and they're kind of trying to propagate it to other people.
Right. And this is the point we talked about a minute ago. He's brought in for servicing to turn up their narrative because they don't do anything.
Yeah, they turn his hostility to 11 and everything else.
And during this conversation between the texts, we learn how long ago this is. This is actually early in the park because they mentioned it. The tech mentions they haven't even hired a full team yet. He's like, when are we going to get off today? Like, I've been on a large shift because we haven't even got a full, we're rewriting narratives on these hosts. We don't have a full team hired yet. So
and I think that was very early, like when they had beta tester people coming to the park.
Right.
And they weren't really overwhelmed with, the static stuff in the background. So they wanted to see blood and gore, and that's where human nature started to get evil.
Right. They turn him up, and this is when he becomes the ghost nation that we know, the white and black face paint, a band of killers, really.
And I like the fact that they showed his evolution to become that. Mm-hmm. With the blood handprints on his face.
Right, he didn't start with those.
And they started to build the story behind the character. And I like when they flesh out the characters like that.
This is actually one of the highest rated episodes on IMDb right now.
Yeah, I got sucked in pretty good.
It was a great, and I bitch and moan when I got to read a lot during its TV show or a movie, but it did not bother me because it was that intriguing, this guy's backstory. But I am that basic that I hate, like I think I mentioned it on Sunday night that I had not seen Pan's Labyrinth. I don't fucking read during the whole damn movie. Just dub the shit so I can listen to it.
Yeah, you don't want to work to watch entertainment.
Right. I'm just here for entertainment. Like, let me watch. Just let me watch. I want to read. But, you know, with this podcast, I turn on closed captions anyways, and I end up reading as it is. So, yeah, that's that's where it's at. So then we get this scene of him and his crew massacring these guys at this camp. I don't know. They're settlers, or there's a bunch of white guys. There's a bunch of guys who are exploring. You know, who would be? I guess you would call them. What would you call them if they're, you know, Ghost Nation? What would you call them?
Well, it depends. It depends on the timeline they're trying to replicate. It could be settlers. It could be, you know, just background scenery to give the tourists something good to look at.
Let's call them settlers for now because we're going to come back to this camp 3 times. Yeah. Well, this is one of 3 right now. So it's pretty much just his party killing everybody at the camp. And this first time, there's no visitors. It's just the narration. It's just the loop. So when that's done, the Ghost Nation goes on. They are riding for a long time. He says they're out exploring, you know, the land and finding people to fight and all that kind of stuff. And at one point he sends his crew, you know, you guys go ride and find, you know, go in different directions and see what you find. And then he heads off and runs and finds this at the edge of like the trees. He finds a desert. And he continues on this desert, and he finds a dead horse, and then up against a tree in a desert, he finds Logan. Now, Logan Delos, the son of James Delos, that we saw last time we saw him, that wasn't in the past in this timeline. Well, last time we saw him in the past 30 years, William had put him on a horse, buck naked, and slapped the horse's ass and said, "Hope you find your fucking way home."
And this is where I had a big stupid grin on my face for at least 5 minutes because I love the fact that he got his payback.
Well, and it really shows you the Logan we saw earlier in the season, who was fucking high as a kite. He lost it. This is where he's broken at this point, like mind-wise.
Oh, he's dehydrated. He's screwed up. He doesn't even know where he is.
He doesn't know which way is up.
He's delirious. But it also reinforces the quality of the character of Akecheta because he doesn't want to kill him.
No, he doesn't.
I mean, he's got a kind of little coin flip situation here. He either wants to, you know, let him suffer in his misery and leave him alone, or maybe screw with him, but not exactly kill him.
Well, and with his awakening, he knows that guy is a visitor. He knows he's not a normal standard host. And as Logan keeps saying,
there's got to be a way out of here. Where's the door? Where's the door? There's got to be a fucking way out of here. This is the wrong world.
That triggers the fact that he's saying that he's in the wrong world. That you see something trigger in Akecheta.
Yeah, he put all the pieces together.
Yeah, he's Logan, unbeknowingly, since Akecheta is becoming woke to everything. He triggers that even deeper in him, and he knows it's not the right world, and there's got to be a door out of here somewhere to get into what's the real world.
And the way he was theorizing anomalies like the gods are messing with him or whatever. From a American Indian perspective, he's trying to put things into justified compartments and make sense of things and put legend around them and try to make stability in his life. But all of a sudden, Logan goes and throws a wrench into the works, and he's like, I get it now.
Right, exactly. And he only tries to tie a little bit of lore to it for a short amount of time, too, because he finally, here shortly, comes upon, like, the Valley Beyond anyways. But let's get to there in a second. So he leaves him a blanket. He's like, your kind will be along for you at some point. The guy's got like second-degree burns from sunburns and like sun poisoning, and he's dehydrated, and he's like, here's a fucking blanket.
The dude was one step away from becoming California Raisin.
Right. He was done. Yeah, that was kind of, I chuckled a little bit when he just like left him a blanket. So his posse, he goes back to his posse from there, and they come upon, or they don't come upon, but they go to his old village before he had been ramped up to 11 to trade. Here's a hog. Give us your gatherings. We're good. We're not, no big deal. We're not going to go look for that shit. You give it to us. We'll bring you the thing we killed. He doesn't realize that it's his old village until he sees her. Yes. Until he sees Koana. And when he sees her, it brings all that shit flooding back, and it starts messing with it. And it's great because the new him, who's playing his character, his loop now, is like, you keep your fucking eyes, you watch your fucking eyes, and he's like, I'll look where the fuck I want.
It's funny because it was kind of a good and bad moment for him, because he went and did that and said, I'll do what I want. But at the same time, he went into his beginnings of his good mode, because he saw his previous girlfriend, wife, or whoever. Right. And all of a sudden things started to click, and he's like, I can't be evil, but I need to act like the character I am coming into this, so I don't draw suspicion. True.
And she's, I would say, his cornerstone. Back with his original thing, his wife was what grounded his character. It was always a comeback, go out, do your daily stuff, but you come back to her. So I would say that because the only reason that she triggers that is because she's his cornerstone.
Yeah, she was significant in his life. Extremely.
So this is when we cut back to him talking to Maeve's daughter. So during the back telling of the story, and he tells her that during all this, his past lives were calling back to him. So he's remembering his past loops, seeing his old wife. He's remembering all of that, and that he couldn't rest until he knew how to reach that, how to get back to where he was before, what he was remembering. So then we're back at the same campfight with the settlers. We're going to call them settlers because it's way easy. We're just going to go there. So we're at the same settlers fight, except this time in the background you see two visitors. So two humans who are there. And it kind of answers my question that I had with Corey a couple weeks ago with the Shogun World one, is like, how do you have swords and shit and not hurt the visitors? The host...
Swords have no security controls.
Yeah, but the whole thing is the hosts just ignore them. So this time during the fight, they completely ignore the humans. They just walk away. They kill all the hosts the same way, and they just walk away. They're
just playing a program, and they're just going.
Yeah, they don't even interact with the hosts, with the visitors.
I didn't notice that.
That's what I saw when I watched it today. And this time also, the final throat slicing, Akecheta doesn't make the final kill. He just tells his buddy, his tall, lanky buddy, he's like, finish it up for me. I'm not. He just walks away.
That's because he didn't want to be part of it, because that's when his enlightening started to come in, and everything's like, I'm not this person.
That, and I've done this before, and it's not worked. So now I'm going to start changing certain things in my loop. So that's the first thing, is like, there's visitors here. I'm not going to make this final kill. Let's see what happens. And nothing happens. So at this point, he rides out in the desert again, where he had seen Logan the first time. And he keeps riding, and he finds what I can only call, in my notes, a big hole. There's machinery, there's construction. And I think this is the same construction that young William showed Dolores episodes ago, where he was like, this is what we're really doing.
I agree with you there, but I think it's a little bit later in the development of the construction.
It is, absolutely.
It's much more built up.
Correct.
And I also had notes on this. You get a very big feeling of how involved the entire Westworld project or the Delos Corporation is, based on the amount of number of floors that were in that construction that they showed.
Right.
And based on how fast they finished it and concealed it.
Very true. Yes, because when we first saw it with young William and Dolores, they were just breaking ground.
Correct.
And then we saw it with him here, where they have got it well dug. There is these, they're upward pipes that could be, they could be holding people, hosts, anything. They could just be support structure.
To me, it looked like columns.
Right. Me too.
And floors. So it looked like sub-levels. There was at least 8 sub-levels in that column structure.
Right. So are we calling this the Valley Beyond? Is this what they're all supposed to be going towards that they never get to in their normal loops? Is this the Valley Beyond?
So I'm a little confused because if you take that same structure and you take a look at it the way he's looking at it in the canyon, and you look earlier in some of the episodes where they had their structure that was kind of hidden from view from the hosts, but it was kind of like their resort area where they had the bar and the pool on the top and everything like that. I was kind of thinking that that was the genesis of that.
Yeah.
So like the headquarters building where all the guests come and that's where their berthing areas are, their dormitory, hotel rooms, whatever. I was thinking it might be that.
To like where they get on the train to get into Sweetwater type thing?
Yeah, I was thinking, you know, when you see where Dolores goes and rescues the guy with the black hat. What's his name again?
William? No.
No, the other guy.
Teddy?
No. The guy with the mustache. The goatee.
Lawrence? You're not narrowing it down for me.
And the complex that's underneath it and the hotel space for all the guests and all of that stuff. I think that's what he's seeing when Akasha is looking at the structure being built. Mm-hmm. Because when they do the concealment and they fill in that section of the valley, and you see in earlier seasons where the guests are up at the resort with the bar.
Right.
And, you know, you see the area with the poolside and the chaise lounges on the very top, and it's kind of concealed off the edge of the cliff. I thought that that's what they were building.
Okay. I see what you're saying there. And you may not be wrong because of what it is. So if that is the place that Hector ended up at the very top of with the pool, and Sizemore was there drinking back in season 1.
The poolside bar,
like the whole
thing.
stuff. That would make sense because during this, when Akecheta is standing over the hole looking at it, he says, you know, where I'm at, he said, this is the wrong world. You know, the door is there. So that would assume that if that's where they come into to start their adventure, like in the hotel and stuff, that could be the door out. So that could be the same thing.
And I don't think that fits the timeline that Akecheta is having.
Right.
Because it's very early in the timeline. That's before they've kind of converted him. Actually, no, he was converted, but he went back.
Yeah. Right.
He went back.
He's already still on his waking path. Correct. So possibly. But yeah, because the stuff with Sizemore and them is way in the future. So this is years and years ago. So you're right. It could be that.
Yeah.
Especially if they're just bringing, you know, if we're early in the development type phase, you know, first 5 years, there's no hotels or anything built for all the up and
they were just doing proof of concept.
They're just getting folks into the park. Yeah, probably
getting investors in there to look at the stuff and say, hey, what do you think?
Right, exactly. So he knows he's in the wrong world. He goes back to his village, and he sneaks into his village at night. And he wants to escape this world, but not without his wife. So he goes for Kohana. He sneaks into their tent, and he takes her. He snatches her up, takes her. They ride off on a horse in the morning. They come across a stream. He washes all of his paint. He washes all of his black and white paint off. So he's back in his normal garb from back when he was with her. They stop at some point during their journey, and he cuts her bind because he has her tied at the hands, and he cuts them free, and he's approaching her like with one hand over his heart and like one hand out to her, and she's scared, but he gets close to her and he tells her, "Take my heart where you go," and she replies, "Take mine in its place." So it triggers in her all of her remembrance of him, and she remembers him. She calls him Ache. She calls him a shortened version of his name, and so she starts to remember. So she's on board now. She's ready to go. She's all about it.
Yeah, and I thought a number of different things when they were doing this scene.
Mm-hmm.
And one of the things I thought of this is when they're trying to tame a wild horse.
True.
I was just thinking that kind of scene, and I was, wondering where it was going to go, because it could have gone very bad when he went into the tent. It could have gone very bad when he took her. But at what point, and this is the question I had written in my notes, when he's trying to kind of impart the awakening to her, when he's reaching his hand out and they're exchanging their phrase, she hadn't seen the maze yet.
Yeah, well, she had. Because when he first came back, he was spreading it all over the tribe.
Oh, that's when he was carving the rocks
everywhere. So she had seen it, but I guess, so what I'm learning from this is that not seeing it doesn't necessarily crank it up unless you're questioning it. So if someone is coming at you with information that's not in your normal loop, it allows you to absorb that information and do with it what you wish. So up until that point, she was just running her old loop, but now he's taken her out of her loop, and he then triggers it. She's seen the maze, so she has access to that subroutine.
So the maze is a release code, but without context, it does nothing.
Yes, we're going with that. You heard it here first, folks. Right. So I would say that. Up
until this moment, I didn't think of that.
I didn't. Well, she hadn't changed. Nothing in her loop had changed. They just put a new husband in, and she had been overwritten. So it makes sense that when he challenges her loop and changes her loop, and she's seen the maze already because of back in the day when he was early in the tribe, she's good to go to understand it, at least and it does trigger it in her, and she remembers him. So, because she has another husband named Akecheta back at the tent that she left.
His stunt double.
Right. His stunt double. So he tells her that he's found a way out of this world, and he takes her to where he had seen the big hole with the door out and everything and all the columns, and it's been covered up.
And that disappointed me.
It disappointed me as well, but it also shows you that it took him a long time to get back to where he was going to snatch her. We see all these little snippets, but there's a large amount of time that's going past in this past 30-year timeline. So they have done what they're going to do down there and covered it up. So either A, it's underground stuff that we've never seen, or B, they haven't started building the rest of the hotel we were just talking about.
Right.
So it may be the hotel. It may be something completely different as well.
But in my mind, I was also thinking it could have been taking so long because he had to make so many attempts to get to that one success.
Possibly.
Because I was thinking Groundhog Day.
Thwarted,
it's like
thwarted
try
elsewhere.
and try and try and try.
Right.
And he finally got through to her.
Right. So he's taken her to the hole. It's not there anymore. He tells her he knows it's there. They're living happily. And then all of a sudden he's out one day hunting for food, and Tex grab her in a buggy. And they're like, I don't know how she got here so long. Like, I don't know how she got this far out. They're not supposed to get anywhere near this sector. And they take her back. So they've shut her down, and they take her out of they take her away. And he's like, well, I hope they took her back to her loop. And he goes to the tent, and he finds some completely different person there.
And I was very upset by that.
So I was like, oh shit.
I was hoping they were just going to do a download, and she'd be back there, and everything would be cool.
Yeah, that is not what happened.
No.
So he's like, okay, I've done everything I can do in this life. Or in this area, in this loop, I've got to go do something else. So at first he travels to other villages, other towns, and I think the one they show us in with a bunch of normal, like, townsfolk, I think it's Lawrence's village.
It exactly looked like Lawrence's village.
Good.
And that's the first thing I picked up when they started walking in there. And he intentionally went to where there was hostiles.
Yeah, he wanted to be...
Because he couldn't do it himself.
Right. He wants to be injured or killed or something. He knows he needs to do something different than what he's been doing.
He wanted to go into the afterlife for a reset.
Right.
But what amazes me is that he was smart enough to pick that up.
It's the programming, man. And at some point during this adventure, he gets attacked and he's wounded. And he's crawling, and Maeve's daughter finds him.
Yep.
Way back before she was woke, and she offers him a cup of water, and he tells her that she saved him. And that's...
And I think that was a good connection to the storytelling he's doing in the current timeline.
Is that you've helped me sometime. That was
their connection.
Right. And so now that she's seen the maze, she can kick back to that at some point. Agreed. So now, since he got wounded, he went back to his old village, no war paint, just kind of hanging out. And he mentions that there are more folks that have been replaced by other individuals. And the old lady in the village, I only call her the old lady because she's the eldest of all the ones that are there. She comes over to talk to him, asks him what he's doing here, and he goes, I see you have a ghost of your own.
I thought that was really cool.
Yeah, and she's like, at this point, she's like, yeah, there's folks talk about the people below, and some of them pray to them, some of them wish to be taken by them, and so he knows that he's done all he can do on this plane to find his wife. He has to do what is done beyond death. So yeah, so now we are back. He's back in his war paint. We're at the same fight with the settlers. And this time, there are two visitors there, and he approaches them and lets one of them kill him. So this is the third time we've seen the fight. We've seen it without any visitors. With visitors, he ignored. But the fine thing he changed is letting himself get killed at that fight. He gets to the basement. He gets to the lab. The techs are marveled in him because the guy hasn't died.
He's an antique.
He's an antique. He's got an alpha build on him. He is before the beta test. He is an alpha. They even call him an alpha, like an alpha 2 or something.
Alpha 2 because he didn't have the clamshell face.
Right. Not the original. Exactly. And
that's the moment at which I thought he was a badass in general. Because he survived all that time.
9 years. They say it. The text says it. He's been out there for 9 years. They're like, we only update him when they die. And it's been 9 years. I'm sorry, he's at Alpha 2. He's never died.
He never got his patches.
And so she tells him, just override him and get him back out there. And she's like, do it quietly. So as they go to put the update on him, they all go off for their lunch break and he takes off. He gets up and he's figured out how to wake himself from death in the lab. And he goes exploring and he finds Kohana down in the cold storage.
This is one of my favorite scenes.
Oh, it's so good. It's so and his realization that she's not coming back to him, that she's there.
It's sad, but it's a win at the same time, and it's just bittersweet. So much, and then even on top of that, he sees the old lady's son behind her, and through this whole time. By the way, this whole time, a Heart-Shaped Box by Nirvana is playing on the piano, which I thought was cool. I love their pickup music in this show is so fantastic. It's great. So he finds her, he finds the lady's son, and then when he gets put back into, he goes back to the chair he was in. He's crying, but and he gets put back into his narrative, and he brings the old lady in his full white and black garb. He brings her son's braid, her real son's braid. And she's beyond emotional. She's crying. She breaks down. He comforts her. And it's great. So we flash to the lab where Maeve has been flayed open, at the neck and the arm, and they are plugged into her. And Sizemore starts to talk to her while she's not responding. He starts crying over her. And he's sad that this is where she's ended up because after all of this, he says you deserve your daughter. You deserve your life. You deserve all the happiness that you could have had with her. There's two things about that scene that bother me greatly.
Like emotionally or like plot-wise?
Both.
Okay, go.
So Sizemore turns into a human being at that moment instead of Dickzilla.
Well, you can't be a dick forever. It's hard to keep that in mind.
So he became human at that point.
Uh-huh.
And he pitied her for not having her daughter. And he started to understand that these are not just machines that you load programs into to perform for like a trained SEAL.
Right.
That's what he was thinking that they were. He was doing scripts and doing dialogues and everything else. And it was just an act. It was just a bunch of people were playing a script and they were nothingness. They were machines.
Right.
But at the same time, all of a sudden, he starts to see they're awakened and they're more than just machines. And he gets pity and feelings and he starts to become a human. Well, then there's the other side of the thing. They have her cut open, and they have all the fiber optic cables going into her chest and her torso and everything else.
Right.
You are a sophisticated company with AI and androids and everything else. Couldn't you put a USB port under the shoulder pit or armpit or whatever?
No, because
you have to cut them open.
No, because the creepy armpit fetish guy's gonna find that shit the wrong way. You can't have that there.
Well, as I was writing my notes, which I forgot, I was talking about, okay, we're not going to put it on the bottom of the foot because there's foot guys. And we're not going to be putting it, in areas where there would be clothing because they love to,
right,
bang the hell out of these robots. So it's not going to be on the back of their neck. It's not. The only thing I can think of, which is an unsavory place, would be under an armpit.
Sorry, man. There's armpit fetishes. Tweet at us. I know you have an armpit fetish. Let us know you're out there. I know they're out there.
I'm not very worldly, so I wouldn't know anything about that.
Sorry, man. Yeah, you don't have the armpit fetish. I'm sorry. You must be missing out. All the armpit fetish guys are telling you that you're missing out right now.
I can see the tweets coming now.
But you're right. There's to get into Abernathy's head, they had the back of his neck cut open to like jack it in there that way, and they have her neck flayed open and her arm flayed open to like do some of this stuff. It's bad.
All this technology, they're using 1980s lap link.
Well,
come on!
But most of the time, they don't have to download the whole core without pulling it out. They have the tech. They have the helmet that cuts the head perfectly, pulls it out, fixes it, throws it in, seals it back up. So they have the normal thing. They're not messing with her head because Sizemore told them not to. Like, not to go in the normal way. She's special. So, subvert it. Do yours.
So because she's special, we're going to mutilate her.
Well, they can put it back together. They had that cool gun that heals fucking wounds,
the
man.
heal gun.
Yeah.
The Star Trek spray gun.
Exactly. So, by the way, anybody who's still hanging on for this long of the podcast, Kevin is also the one who watches all the Star Trek Discovery episodes with me. It's kind of our Sunday thing. Him and our wives get together and we watch our shows. It's a Sunday night thing. So yeah, he was there. We have the entire first season of Star Trek Discovery on this podcast as well. So feel free to go back and listen to that. He is part of my brain when it comes to the stuff I talk about on that show too. So make sure you listen to that. That's if you're into the Star Trek stuff, go watch Discovery. Listen to our recap and review podcast. It's fantastic.
Pretty righteous plug there, buddy.
Yeah, it's pretty righteous. By the way, speaking of that, okay, side note, because the Two Dads Review loves to go on tangents. Did you hear that they replaced the two showrunners with Kurtzman today?
I heard rumors of that, but I wanted to ask you first.
I read the article today. They replaced I can't remember their names, but it's the guy that was the guy with the glasses who was the guy with the glasses and the heavyset lady that was on there as writers. They are been replaced by Alex Kurtzman, who has been involved with all the Star Trek movies, like the new round of movies that have come through.
That may not be a bad thing.
I don't hate it. I don't hate the new movies. The new movies are okay. They're good. I'll take anything. We've said this before I've said this before on our podcast. Corey's not a Trekkie. I'm the Trekkie. I will take anything Star Trek media, movie, TV, anything. The fact that people are getting so upset over Discovery back in the day, I'm just glad there's a show out there to get upset about.
They need to get over that.
Yeah, no. We did. Trust me. We talked about fandoms last week. If you didn't listen to last week's episode of Solo, we had our special guest from all of our Star Wars episodes, Brian J. Jones, the author of George Lucas' A Life, Currently working on the biography for Dr. Seuss. Has a Jim Henson biography. The guy is great. He lives in the area. We love the guy. He comes on the show anytime anything Star Wars comes out. Fandoms suck because fandoms comes from the term fanatic, and fanatics are not a good thing. And
they're biased.
They're horribly biased, and we could get on an entire chunk of this about that. But yeah,
but even though we're super fans, we love to see what else is out there.
I just want to see what's out there. So yeah, so they literally have finished the first, like the two writers, the main writers that just got shit canned, they finished 5 episodes are in the can already. They're already done. And they've replaced them now as episode 6 with Kurtzman. So
I want to see if we notice any nuances in the change.
Well,
from the 5 episodes to the 6 episodes.
Will you come back episode 6? Will you
Absolutely.
come back on the pod? Okay.
Absolutely.
Okay, because I want you back on that because you and I are Trekkies by heart. So it's real easy for us. You can come on the Star Trek podcast whenever you want. That should be 2019 as far as I know. I don't think it's coming out any earlier than that, so we should be good.
I can't wait.
It's going to be great. Stay tuned. We're just filling this with movies until Star Trek comes back on, so don't worry about it. All right. Where are we? Sizemore crying over Maeve. The tech comes in telling me he's got to get out because they're working on the anomalous code. They're focusing on it, and she is just sitting there just barely alive. All right.
Okay. Let's cut to one more part of my notes.
Okay.
I'm worried at this point.
About what?
About motivations. About
whose?
Ulterior motives of the tech. So when Sizemore has to be forced to leave, and they leave with the tech and Maeve by themselves, I'm worried that they're worried about intellectual property and nothing more, which is pretty much what they hint towards.
True.
And I'm worried about the fact that my previous theory that Maeve is going to be the good witch and Dolores is going to be the bad witch, and there's going to be a battle in the future. And I'm wondering how this is going to shake down.
Right. Well, until they understand what she's got going on, she's safe.
Yeah,
until
these guys are
clueless
right now.
Clueless to their own tech, to their own code even. Well, to someone's code they work for, to be honest. But yes, you're right. She is definitely not out of the woods yet because of who's still controlling her on and off switch. Agreed. So, we are back at the Ghost Nation camp, and Akecheta is still telling Maeve's daughter more of the story. And so he's telling her that after finding his wife, losing and finding her in the cold storage, and then going back to he dedicated his rest of his life to spreading this symbol. So first he spread it to his crew, so his posse of Ghost Nation guys, including the tall, lanky one that ran with him all the time, you saw all the time. So he's now drawing it. And this scene, I don't understand it, but he has Akecheta scalp him.
Okay,
and I don't know why.
Okay,
give me theories, because I have no clue. Because he said you have to hide, like the guy said you have to hide it from them or something to that effect. And I was like, what do you mean? I don't know.
So the fact that he's a beta 2 version, and the fact that they hid the fact that he was out there for so many years without any updates, I think that leads to the fact that they're more susceptible to being influenced by the May symbol than some of the newer models.
Right.
And there's a scene coming up, and I'm not going to get into that and spoil it, and I have some funny stuff to go with that scene.
Okay.
But I think what the whole purpose of that particular scene you're spooked by is they have to conceal that they're awakened. They're protecting their ability to operate in this environment awakened and not be discovered by the humans that run the facility.
Okay.
It's a concealment exercise.
I mean, that makes sense. I mean, it does. It's just they don't give me anything else. But you're right. If his buddy hasn't died at all because we only saw Akecheta die because he made himself die, that he could be just as susceptible. But why he has him scalp him? Maybe because he wants to travel to the other side? Maybe that's what it is.
He doesn't want the evidence.
But
he doesn't want to be revealed as somebody awakened.
Is it all tattooed on his head? Oh, well, maybe. I don't know.
Just think about the upcoming scene for a second.
So why scalp him, though?
Think about the upcoming scene for a second.
Okay. So the next scene, he's talking to his daughter. We're back at him talking to Maeve's daughter, and he's telling her that the loop that she was in with Maeve when he was coming to the house, he wasn't trying to kill them. He was trying to spread the message
and protect her.
And it was hard. Sometimes my intentions are not seen as they're supposed to be. So he left.
He's a scary dude when he's in makeup.
True. And so he left the symbol at the house. So you saw him come to the door, not enter, draw the symbol, and then run away. And then Maeve comes out, sees the symbol with the daughter and everything. So, and
actually, she thought that was a threat early on.
True. She's like, "What did he do? Well, what is this? What is this symbol?" Correct. And then we get. He wakes up. So during all of this stuff, Akecheta wakes up in the middle of the night, and he meets Ford. Ford is out right near where he's asleep, so you know it's on purpose. And he has this big-ass bear with a bunch of Ghost Nation guys around him, and everything's frozen. So
and it was like a scene from the Museum of Natural History.
Exactly. That's exactly what it was. We're in the DC area, so natural history, we're going to see that kind of shit. So you're right. That's exactly what it is.
Would you like to know what my quote is on my notes for that scene?
Please. Your notes that you keep referencing that I've never seen.
So this is Ford's Hair Club for Hosts, where I think Ford is trying to erase the maze scene from the inside of their scalps.
He does have a few guys scalped.
I really need to know what your impression of that scene is, because that confuses me.
Okay, so what the scene is, you got the bear, few guys, and there are guys who are kneeling, and Ford is actively scalping them.
Yeah, and they're in mid-defense poses, and he did his little trick where he snaps his fingers, and everybody stops, and he's got a couple of their scalps off.
Right, so when they're talking, Ford is asking Akecheta that first he tells him this symbol was meant to die with Arnold. This is Arnold's symbol. This is Arnold's maze he set up for the host.
It's his Easter egg.
He's like, but you found it. He's like, where did you first see this? And this is where Akecheta tells him, I saw it when the Deathbringer killed the Creator. And so so he calls Dolores the Deathbringer, which is the fucking God damn it. If I had a fucking nickname,
perfect. Yes.
So as Ford is interviewing him, he tells him, analysis. What is your, he tells him all that. He asks him all these questions, and Akecheta says, my drive was normally to do my normal loop, but I made a new drive, and my new drive was to spread the truth of the maze and the door. And he tells Ford that he believes there's a door to the new world.
Okay, so now that you just said that, let's break it down into manageable pieces.
Okay.
So this is where my confusion starts, and I need help.
Our confusion. I can't guarantee you help.
So while he's having this dialogue with Ford,
right,
he uses two very important terms, Deathbringer and Creator.
Right.
We know Dolores is the Deathbringer. Is Ford the Creator? Or is Arnold the Creator?
Arnold is the Creator when he's talking to it.
So in the initial scene earlier on, when Arnold's on the ground, that's what he's referring to.
Correct. That's when he first saw the maze.
Okay, you just fixed it for me.
Okay.
Okay, because when I'm hearing Creator, I'm actually kind of leaning towards Ford as the Creator, because I think Ford is the mastermind.
I think when it comes to IT companies, Ford's the mouth, and Arnold was the guy writing the code.
So Ford's the PM, Arnold's the contractor.
Correct.
Yeah, okay.
Oh, if you only knew us and our lives. Yeah, okay. So, correct. Ford knows a few of the nuances, but Arnold was elbow deep.
He was in the driver's seat.
Correct.
Okay, gotcha.
Correct. So,
gotcha.
I don't think Ford was that bad because he had plenty of his hand to play. And in fact, the door game this current season is his game anyways. But as they're talking, so Ford, during their conversation, Ford tells Akecheta,
when the Deathbringer returns for me, you will know to gather your people and lead them to a new world.
So, as much as Ford seems to be against what Arnold's ideals were, he tells Akecheta here, you gather the ones who are woken, and you go to the new world when you see me die. And we get there here shortly, where he comes upon the party.
And I think Ford knew his back was to the wall very early on when corporate was starting to do their shenanigans. And
he was alone because Arnold was already dead.
He was an island.
Mm-hmm.
His morals were not shared by anybody else. His mission was not shared by anybody else. It was a matter of corporate greed and no idealism whatsoever, and people just wanting intellectual property and people wanting to get rich off of preserving the rich people in new host bodies.
Right.
And it had nothing to do with the creative or the intellectual or the mission of what they're trying to do emotionally. And I think he knew his game was up. And he said, you know what? If I'm out, then you guys raise hell.
When I'm out. So he was already planning it at this point. I
don't know if he was certain he was completely out.
When the Deathbringer returns for me. So he knew Dolores would come for him.
So he knew the party scene was happening at that point?
He was already going to plan that. He was already planning on downloading his consciousness. And he said, until that point, keep watching. So he told Akecheta to just stay and just watch what happens. And just wait till it happens. And
So he planted Akecheta as a sleeper because there was so much time between that moment in Akecheta's timeline and the scene on the front porch of that building where he got shot in the head.
Right. Well, we know it's not a horrible amount of time because they didn't use a younger actor. They didn't use
Okay.
So we know it's closer to that 2 weeks ago mark from the present time, but not. It could be 5 or.
I was thinking more like years.
5 years. I would say probably 5 or less.
Okay.
But at that point, Ford has told him, you watch until she kills me, and then at that point, you gather your people, and you go to the door.
And all holds are off.
Right. No holds barred. Go to town. So, yeah. So at this point, the party has happened. So we're now at the 2 weeks ago mark. Ford is dead. The Deathbringer has returned. Akecheta finds his body. And so he's talking to Maeve's daughter, and he tells her that he needs to find the door before the Deathbringer kills us all. So he is afraid of Dolores.
He's afraid of extermination.
Well, yeah, exactly. But he knows that Dolores' path is not. For some reason, we know that Dolores at the end is just her and maybe a few, if not just her, leaving that door. Her goal is her only.
Yeah.
Because of her Wyatt load and the way that she's handling things, everyone is expendable except herself. So he knows that he's been told by Ford on a whole separate path to get his folks out of there. And he knows to fear the Deathbringer.
Protect your people.
Correct. So at that point, during the storytelling, Grace, the Man in Black's daughter, arrives to the camp. Right? And she and Lakoden asks but we didn't mention it at the very beginning, but the Man in Black, while dying, tells Akecheta, he's like, I never learned the language when he's talking to him.
And this screwed with me for days.
Why?
How in the hell does she know Lakota?
Because of her father's love/obsession with the park, she spent so much time there, she learned Lakoden.
Oh, to gain
his approval?
She paid attention.
No, she paid attention because she practically grew up in this park. So she paid attention. In fact, episodes ago, she mentioned that while no one else around her paid attention to her narrative, she did, and she learned the language. That's why she could speak Lakoden.
Jeez.
So she rolls in there speaking Lakoden, and she tells them, I've come for him. He's my burden to bear. And he's like, why do you want him? And she's like, well, why did you heal him? Like, if you want him to die, just let him die, but you healed him. And he goes, well, I want him to hurt. Well, she says, I want him to, but so much more than you do. So they give him to her. She takes him. She plops his hat on his head, throws him over a fucking horse, and she takes him.
And she's got daddy issues.
Yeah, she is. I do not even want to know. We have 2 episodes left. I do not want to know what she has planned for him, because it is going to be intense and probably sickening. So she takes off with the man in black, and Akecheta talks to Maeve's daughter and tells her it's time to go and that he will keep her safe.
And I like that part.
Yeah, he will always keep her safe. Oh, he tells her that he's always kept her safe, but never been able to help her. So
at the scene at the cabin where he was trying to protect her.
Right, he can't.
But the scene cuts were done strategically to make it look like a threat.
Right.
It was revealed that he was there to protect her.
Correct.
And now he is her guardian angel.
Right, exactly. So they cut from that to the main tech, briefing Charlotte and saying, look, this whole time this has been happening, no one has been able to gain admin access. No one has. Except this host laying on this table right here. And she has been able to gain admin access. She's been able to talk to each host and reprogram them on the fly. And in fact, Charlotte picks up the tablet. She says, she's doing it now. Like, who the fuck is she talking to?
And she's talking to Akecheta.
She's talking to Akecheta. She's talking through Akecheta to her daughter. And she tells... He tells... No. At first, he's talking to Akecheta.
Okay.
He tells Maeve that he is going to keep her daughter. And he tells Maeve to stay alive. He's like, if you get away, find us. Or die well, is what he tells Maeve. And Maeve tells him in Lakotan, take my heart when you go. So it just ties it all together, and that's the end of the whole episode.
It's all a nifty way to close it for the episode. However,
it is.
At the same time, I thought there were some proxy server moments with Maeve.
Where she was talking through.
Akecheta talking through him.
To her daughter.
To her daughter.
There was. And I thought that at first. I mean, and there is... The way he's talking can be seen as him talking to the daughter.
Shift back and forth.
But he is talking to Maeve. And so that's who she's talking to. So not only can she control hosts in her purview, she can talk to anyone in the park, which makes her insane. So I can't wait.
Back to square one, God mode.
Yeah, she's insane in God mode. And the next 2 episodes, this is going to be the greatest 2 episodes of this series, I think.
I'm thinking it's going to be yin versus yang, good versus bad.
And Dolores and it's sad that Dolores is, all this time before this all happened, that she's just this country girl with her dad at the farm. She's the bad guy of all this because she is only on the mission to get her ass out of that park. Nobody else.
Yeah, but I think a lot of the programming that was sent to her, besides some of the enlightenment that she's been given through other influences.
Right.
I think it was planned all along. I think she was basically being groomed
by
Ford, perhaps, but I think more corporate than Ford.
So who has more control, do you think, or who's under Ford or Arnold's code influence? Maeve, Dolores, or Akecheta?
Okay, so let's do it by character.
Okay, so Dolores.
Dolores, I have a feeling, started out as Ford, but got taken over by corporate.
Okay.
Because they were trying to exfiltrate the cores of strategic, intellectual property from certain hosts. So they decided, hey, we have an opportunity here. Let's take it. Let's take it over. Let's use her to exfiltrate the cores of the people that we want to protect, and let's burn everything else down. But at the same time, when you thought Maeve was the bad character, and she was starting to create conflict, and she was starting to, build her own little posse and start to create problems and, killing people and, sweeping through the park. It turns out Dolores is the bad person. I think Maeve is actually the good person. It's going to be good versus evil. It's going to be that old, story go-to, it's going to be the climax of the whole season.
I can almost see a good, the bad, and the ugly scene where you have the 3-man standoff.
Oh.
Where you have Akecheta, Dolores, and Maeve all on equal corners and just who's going to go first?
Well, if you were to score them, Akecheta would be, in Dungeons and Dragons terms, Akecheta would be like the good pious.
Right.
I think the really good guy.
Right.
And Dolores would be the really evil. And Maeve would be kind of good with a little hint of evil.
Yeah, you would say Dolores is chaotic evil. You would say that Akecheta is neutral chaotic, maybe? I think that's how it goes.
Yeah.
And then Maeve is lawful good, more than likely. Maybe I wouldn't say lawful, actually. I would say
there's no lawful about it.
I would say neutral good.
Neutral good I can go for.
Yeah. So,
but it's going to be a South Park moment at the last episode. It's going to be, yay, Jesus. Yay, Santa.
And that's where we're going to end it. That's it. The episode 7 and 8 are over. We have gone through them scene by scene. We've discussed everything we can. I hope you guys enjoyed this episode. Corey will hopefully be back for at least the finale. I may be winging it on episode 9. I may have Kevin back for episode 9. We'll never know. You'll have to tune in to find out. But as always, thank you for hanging on this long to the podcast. And always check us out on Twitter. Follow us on Twitter. Subscribe wherever you listen to the podcast. And catch us next week for our review of episode 9. Nice and short. Won't be 2 episodes this time. Thank God. It always takes us so much longer. So we will catch you guys next week. Thank you for hanging on this long, and we'll see you later.
Thanks a lot, guys.